Hey, and welcome back to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. It's Matching Thursday, apparently. You were all excited about it when you first came in. We are going to talk. Last week, we did a pop culture Thursday. So we're going to do the same thing this week. We're going to dive into some tidbits. The Washinton Football Team they're claiming they're actually going to pick a name. Renoylds just released a new movie. There's a Jeopardy issue with Mike Richardson, the new host. That's a fascinating story. Business Insider just released how much Tik Tokers are actually making. I found that really interesting as well. Brittany's dad quit the, I always biff this word, conservatory. There it is. But
or
before we get to
conservatorship or something
conservatorship.
like that. I think it's a conservatory.
Like it's close. I almost had it. But before we get to all of the pop culture news today, Mark, how are you feeling today?
Well, anytime I dress exactly like you, I feel good. You know, this is Carolina Blue Day apparently here in the studio, and I'm a little thrown. You like to work in almost nocturnal settings, and when I walked in, of course, it was like it's bordering on when you get here before I do. Yes. The kind of the ambiance of the room is either cave-like or romantic, depending on which spin you want to go on, and then all of a sudden, it was like, let there be light. And I said, did you just turn those on? And you said you thought something was wrong with me, so you wanted to make me happy, which is the first time in like 200 episodes you've ever cared about how I felt. So I'm a little perplexed.
There's three things that I will. First, romantic cave is what I was going for, so thank you.
I think isn't that a cologne, romantic cave?
Second, you claim I don't care about you, but I start every show with how are you feeling?
But you're being sarcastic.
I don't think I am at all.
It's a bit.
I'm actually very concerned about you.
I don't think that. I don't believe that for a minute.
And then third, I was worried about you. Sometimes you're very but then other days, like we start the show and you're looking at your phone. And
because I'm reading stuff you just said.
I'm just making sure.
When we're going on in 15 minutes and you're like, did you see this story? And I say, no. And you say, I send it to you. Then you know what I have to do? I have to read it.
I sent you nothing today. Nothing today.
I've been busy.
Real quick, before we get started today, you'll notice above us, there's these little tiles. If you go to NorthcentralPa.com, the Little League World Series, which is starting play today, we have all the coverage at NorthcentralPa.com that you're looking for. So when you first go to the website, you'll see those little buttons above us, photo gallery, news and stories, stuff like that. As the afternoon gets underway, Brett Crossley of NorthcentralPa.com will be over there. I think he might be there now. He left a little bit ago. So again, be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for your Little League World Series coverage.
And it's going to be a weird one. You know, for those of us who've grown up seeing it, and we see it, you know, as I've gotten older, I still see it more on TV than I do actually in person. With no crowd, there's no, you know, the Far East is always dominant. Sure. And, you know, there's always these, Latin America is usually pretty good. And so it's going to be different, but, you know, it is what it is, and they're going to make the most of it. And here it is. This is I've said this before, and I said again, I know Little League is, all youth sports kind of are struggling, the original ones. Little League, AYSO, because travel tournaments and these, you know, pay-to-play teams are starting to take over. But because of just how it falls on the calendar, it's like with March Madness. March Madness will dominate forever and ever and ever because there's nothing in March to compete with. The NHL regular season has gotten old and people are waiting for the playoffs. The NBA regular season has gotten old and they're waiting for the playoffs. Baseball hasn't started yet. Warm weather hasn't got there. March Madness is brilliant. Little League Baseball, because of where it sits, the Little League World Series, at the end of August, there are no natural enemies for it.
Right.
Baseball is in the dog days, hasn't heated up to the playoffs yet. Football hasn't started yet.
Right.
And school is kind of getting back in, not getting back in, but people have kind of settled back into life. Yeah. Most people are done with vacations right now. And it is, if you're a sports fan, even if you don't like baseball, Little League World Series, and because it's on ESPN, Little League World Series will dominate coverage for the next 8 or 10 days.
From a TV product, I have always said the 6 innings. It is amazing what the 6 innings does for the TV product.
It is great.
You're in, you're out. It's not like it's taking up your whole night. Like you can kind of flip back and forth. Like you can start a game and an hour and a half later it's done. There is something to be said for the 6 innings. I agree. I'm not saying Major League should switch it up or anything like that, but from a TV product standpoint, the 6 innings is perfect.
Well, I think the purists, the baseball purists, have trouble with the 7-inning doubleheaders and the extra inning starting a guy on second base, and I think they're both here to stay. Yeah. I think the 7-inning. I was actually at a 7-inning doubleheader. The only big league game we went to this year, my son was at a travel tournament outside of Philly, and the Phillies had a doubleheader with the Marlins, and it was like a 4:00 start, and we got there in the second inning of the first game, but it was the first game's over, and we probably saw 12 innings, but it seemed different because it was a beginning and an end, and there was tension, and then there was a break, and you could go eat, and it was so I can 6 innings though it's very consumable,
very, very consumable. Speaking of what might not be consumable, Jeopardy right now has its hand full with their most recent announcement of having Mike Richards. Do we want to say split duties? He was going to split duties with another host. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. However, it is coming out. There's a report at theringer.com, and you did not know about this until I just told you.
No.
It is coming out. Mike Richards at one point had a podcast in like 2013, 2014. It is coming out that it was, I don't think the podcast was like despicable, but it is coming out now that some of the things he tried to do it almost like a Howard Stern style show in podcast form. Obviously, that is coming back now to bite him. He asked ladies if they'd ever taken nude photos. There was one instance where he said something about pregnancies and if they were disgusting or not. And then, of course, there was some backlash at The Price is Right as well about things that he may have said behind the scenes there. So it is now coming forward. These, I don't even know what to call them because it's not, it definitely happened. They have the recordings. But it's not like it's kind of like what we talked about with John Legend's wife the other day. Like it's more of like a morality code than actually being legally in trouble.
What did we talk about with John Legend's wife?
Chrissy Teigen. We talked about.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Like I said, some days I feel like
you're
here, some days I feel like
John Legend's wife? Who that?
No.
So no, I do remember that.
So it comes back to that idea of like, can he host Jeopardy now or can he not?
Well, this is where I think
backlash.
The fans didn't want him. And,
well, no, absolutely not.
And now they're looking for anything to just what a PR disaster. And this is an aspect in life where people think they're so big that whatever we do, they are going to go with. And you've even seen this with professional sports teams, right? That they're like, I know, I think it was when Terry Francona was in Philadelphia.
Yes.
And back before he won with the Red Sox, before he went to Cleveland, he's had a very successful big league managerial career, but he was with the Phillies. And I'd heard that the Phillies front office really liked him and knew that he was a good manager, but the fans hated him so much that they're like, it will hurt our product immensely if we bring him back. Right. And it's not fair to him, but there are other good managers out there that we can find. And we just can't look at our fan base and give them the middle finger and say, we're going to do what you don't want to do. And we don't care how ravenous it is. Now, there's always, you never please everyone, but there are times, and the Jeopardy fans are not quiet about any of this.
No.
They certainly had their fan favorites. LeVar Burton is the loudest, but they liked other ones. And the girl that's on now, the other girl that they selected, I can't think of her name. She was the girl from
in the Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang. They loved her too, but they can't. No matter how iconic and institutionalized Jeopardy is, you can't just look at your fan base and say, "Screw you, we're going to throw on this executive producer just because he wants to." It's going to hurt.
Yeah. So here was the part from The Ringer this was the part that I found most fascinating. Jeopardy begins taping its new season on Thursday, with Sony leadership hoping to ring in the beginning of a bright new era, but doubts about the man set to be the face of that era remain. In May 2013, Mike Richards launched a podcast called The Random, R-A-N-D-U-M-B, The Random Show, which was promoted to listeners as a look behind the scenes at The Price is Right. In one of the episodes, he says the one-piece swimsuits made women look really frumpy and overweight, as well as asking women about nude photos. Hours after The Ringer asked Sony and Richards' agents about the podcast, the audio was pulled down of every episode, and the hosting site was deleted. Richards was named the executive producer of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune in 2019. A supervisor that worked closely to him made the remark in 2019, "I bet he hires himself to take over the show."
Huh.
Scandalous.
Interesting.
Scandalous.
Now, yesterday we talked about the GOP taking stuff off the website, and you said that was the right thing to do.
Correct.
So did they do the right thing by taking this down?
If I worked for Mike Richards, yes. The answer is yes.
So let me ask you, this is the part that I get.
Yeah.
To say, if you just make a blanket statement that all women that wear one-piece bathing suit look overweight and frumpy, you can't make that statement just because it's inaccurate. If he was talking about one particular, like if it was a comment about The Price is Right and something that they wore that, like, I don't like that one, because the context of that statement is
correct. I think the context of the statement is like he said it in a podcast during a discussion. So it's not like he said it as if he was responding to someone.
That somebody said, "What do you think about this?"
Correct.
Okay, and that's fair.
I think the context was pretty damning.
I don't know of asking a woman if you've ever taken nude photos, of asking anyone if you've ever taken nude photos. I don't know why that's so offensive.
Well, and see, that's what I came back to. It's kind of like the Chrissy Teigen thing of like that morality police, like the social online courtroom of, you know, it doesn't matter necessarily if it's illegal. It's more kind of like, does the court of public opinion agree with it or not? So I'm sure that there are people out there that if I were a woman and I was asked, did he ask guys the same question? I would imagine if you went through every episode, he probably didn't ask any dudes if they took nude photos. And thus now, what is the point of the question? Why would you only ask women that question? Like the point I'm making is it goes down a very ugly spiral when you start putting it in context.
And
if he asked that question to every guest, I get your point. The problem, though, is I would all but guarantee if you went through every podcast he did, he probably only asked that question to women. And that's the problem. Why are you only asking women on your show if you've ever taken a nude photo? That's the issue.
And I get your point. Let me spin it another way.
Okay.
If we're sitting here with a famous actress, take your pick.
Okay.
I think it is a very fair question to ask an actress if you would do nudity.
Yes, it's also a fair question to a man.
But percentage-wise of film nudity is so much more prevalent of women than it is of men.
Yes.
So
because up until about 5 years ago, men made an absurd amount of movies. Like there's a reason. Was it Reese Witherspoon's movie company? Did you see this at all? Mm-hmm. She just sold her movie company for almost $1 billion. She got $900 million for her movie company, and the whole basis of the movie company is it's women directors, women producers, women at their women's stories. Like the whole idea is like coming from the women's perspective. If that's how it would have been, if it would have been a 50-50 split, there would have been just as many nude scenes of guys as there would have been nude scenes of women. It's just men always created movies for they were the ones who wrote the scripts. They were the ones who got hired to be the directors because it was predominated in Hollywood that a female couldn't direct or a female.
And I get that. And
yes.
Be that all well and good. But still the mathematics of it is, I don't think that they would ever, who's your boy? Who are we talking about? Ryan Reynolds. I don't think there ever comes a point in Ryan Reynolds' career where they're like, this is what it calls for. It calls for nudity. Are you willing to do it? But I think with actresses, it happens all the time. And yes. I think that's a fair question. And I don't think it's a sexist question.
The question in itself is fair. You are not wrong. The context surrounding it, meaning the fact that a woman has probably been asked that question multiple times in her actress career versus the fact that an actor has probably never been asked maybe once or twice. That's where it's wrong. So the question itself isn't wrong. It's the fact that someone of the opposite sex would have to answer the question more often than someone else. That's the issue.
But because it happens more than
like in the movie The Proposal with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds.
Okay.
There's a chance that was the first time Ryan Reynolds was ever asked, like, are you willing to do nudity? There's 0% chance it was the first time Sandra Bullock was ever asked if she was willing to do nudity. That's the difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Correct. That's the difference. And for depending on how you look at that, that's not okay. Like it shouldn't be that. The discrepancy should not be that significant.
But it is.
Correct. But
from an interviewer standpoint, I'm not trying to cure the ills of Hollywood. I'm just trying to ask relevant questions.
Oh, but see, but the reason the question is relevant, again, I don't think the question is like condemning. Like, I don't think the question is like horrific. Like, I don't think he shouldn't be the host of Jeopardy just because on a podcast he asked like a very Howard Sternish question that was relatable to like a celebrity or an actress. The point that I would make to you, the issue within the culture of movie making is that question is only a legitimate question to females. It's not a legitimate question to males.
Okay, we'll go on. We were supposed to have a light, fun show today, and we will get there. But so let me ask you this. Mathematically speaking, in the world of athletics,
okay,
when we combine the world of athletics and the LGBTQ community, there are many in the like predominant, especially in college sports, whatever, there are many fewer men who are collegiate athletes who are in the LGBTQ community than on the women's side.
Okay. I'm not sure where you're going with that.
So if you go to I don't know how to just say it without just saying, to ask the sexual orientation of a college athlete, of a man, never gets asked because it is assumed that 99.9% of them are heterosexual. On the female side, it's not like that. Okay. You know it and I know it. There are many more females. Like you look at the World Cup, the Olympic soccer teams and all this, you know, that this is the NCAA, the women's basketball tournament and all the WNBA players who are in the LGBTQ community.
So what are you getting at?
So is it an unfair question if they're asked more predominantly than men? Because in the men's side, we generally already know the answer.
I don't think it's that. See, the difference is not generally knowing. The difference is there was a general assumption. I think that's the biggest difference. So like there were the stereotype going through like 70s, 80s, 90s. The stereotype was like, oh, women build differently in college athletics. Like there's a chance maybe she doesn't identify herself as a woman or she isn't attracted to men. But now like that's shifting. Like the general assumption is no longer going to be what it was. We are much closer to a day where if the question is asked, a male athlete would have to identify almost as often as a female athlete than we are to what we were before. We're getting closer to the point where like you're gonna have to, like, not have to.
It's more out there and it's more acceptable. The percentage of LGBTQs in the NBA is very, very low. The percentage of LGBTQs in the WNBA is it may be over 50%.
Okay, but my point being to you is like, first, I'm not even sure if you're saying they should have to identify. Like, I'm not even really sure what you're asking or what you're trying to say.
If you go into an NBA locker room, you're assuming every guy's straight.
I'm not, but you might be because you're older than me.
Because that's
your world is because you're like your world. Yes, my world. No. Like when I walk in to coach a team, I don't assume that just because I'm coaching a group of girls that they like guys, and just because I'm coaching a group of guys that they like girls. Like I don't make the assumption. Now, after I get to know them and they start talking to me of like I'm in their circle of like, you know, oh, like so-and-so's dating this person, like now I start to get the grip of it, and this is what they're interested in, or this is how they identify. But like our generation gap is very different in that. I'm not implying your generation is worse or my generation is better. I'm just saying how I would walk into that locker room, and my assumptions are very different than someone who's 50, 60, 70 years old and walking into that locker room.
Okay.
They're just different.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
To spin it all the way back to where we started, I just think everything with men and women is not the same. And to say, if we ask this question to men, we have to ask it to women. If we ask this question to women, we have to ask it to men. Because there are roles and aspects of society that are much more female dominated or much more male dominated. And I think that these aspects, as in film nudity, is one of them.
Yes, and that goes back to like the question is fair. It's not that the question isn't fair. The point though is, like you said, there are more roles where women would have to perform nudity than men.
Correct.
And the big reason for that is not
the
because
men are in charge.
Correct.
And I don't debate
and
that.
That is the conflict. That's why.
So then the next question though becomes, so back to Mike Richards, why is what he asks so criminal?
It's not. The question itself isn't criminal. The manner and the context of which he is using it and who he is consistently asking it to is what makes it, because it's not criminal, but is what makes it in the court of public opinion wrong. That's why. Because if he would have walked in, if Mike Richards interview you and I, and halfway through it, he goes, so have you guys ever taken nude photos? Like, you and I would probably start laughing and like have a conversation. The problem though is he wouldn't have asked us that. And the majority of people would not have, because there is this, it's just the defining characteristic of the stereotype is that like women have to do nude performances in movies. Like if there's a sex scene, if they're like, it's not so much if the male is naked, it's if the female is naked. Now that's shifted. Like if you watch like an HBO, like Game of Thrones or something like that, there's almost just as much male nudity as there was.
I didn't watch any Game of Thrones.
Yeah. There's
nudity
almost
with dragons?
Yes. There's almost as much male nudity as there is with female nudity. So like now if they would have made Game of Thrones in the 90s, the discrepancy would have been significantly more. So I think the question isn't horrific, but the context in which he's using it is not great.
Okay.
It's problematic.
So let me ask this. First of all, he's on a podcast. He's trying to get ratings. And as you said, he's trying. If you listen to what Howard Stern asked female actresses and asked male actresses, it would not have been the same question.
But I would also say,
and he's a gajillionaire.
Correct. And that is the decision Howard Stern has made.
And now he has gone to mainstream because he was on a judge on America's Got Talent for multiple years.
Correct.
And people love Howard Stern. Even as quote unquote obnoxious as he was, he is just kind of survived.
I also think there is now we're getting into the conversation of Jeopardy. I have always viewed Jeopardy as more of like the uppity game show.
Correct.
And so like the people who are enjoying Jeopardy may not be the exact same people.
That's a good
America's
point.
Got Talent.
That's a fair point.
Like America's Got Talent, like you hit the buzzer and gold confetti.
Well, only
down,
for one person.
And like, well, I'm just saying.
That's not everybody.
Like when you win Jeopardy, you turn to the left and you turn to the right, and like you know, there's no gold confetti raining down from the sky. That's all I'm saying.
Handshake.
No, Howard Stern could not do Jeopardy.
Now he could, I bet.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think society
not after what
more
Mike Richards is going through. Like, I don't think Howard Stern.
I guess here's the other aspect of society. If you're sitting in interviews and if you are famous enough that you're being interviewed, if you're a coach, if you're a player, if you're anyone who's ever interviewed, you have handled your fair share of stupid questions.
Okay.
So if Mike Richards asks some chick who is sitting on, for the interview, have you ever taken nude pictures? Why doesn't she just say no? Even if it's a lie, who cares? You're not under oath. It's a podcast. Like, just answer it however you want. Wouldn't you like to know? Why not just? Do
you want me to change the subject now?
Why can't you just answer? I don't understand.
It's not the same. Because it would be like you have a daughter. And so like, imagine if your daughter went to interview and she thought she was doing like this podcast. And the next thing you know, the question is like, have you ever taken nude photos before? Now, your daughter could say no. Your daughter could avoid the question. It's all those things. But when you go home at night, you wouldn't say that guy should lose his job, but you would be like, he didn't need to ask you the nude photo question. Like that wasn't a thing.
Well, not as teenagers. If she's 40,
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you're like, if you had a 30-year-old daughter and she went in to do a podcast interview with Mike Richards, and like 15 minutes in, again, you wouldn't say like Mike Richards is like the devil, but you would be like, yeah, that question was pointless. Like, I don't understand why he would ask you that question. That's the difference.
I mean, I don't know. I just think people are way too sensitive, and I don't.
Yeah. So listen, I had to talk to a guy yesterday who was upset about somebody taking something down off of a website. He was like losing his mind. So I get people being too sensitive. Trust me.
I'm not upset that they took it down.
I understand.
Right. Whatever.
The Washington Football Team, they are having, it's not a contest, but they're having like this whole idea of like naming the brand. So they put out a list of 8 names. They have cut it down to 3 finalists, but
is
they have
one
not
of them the
said,
Washington nude photos?
It is not. But that would be very like, that would be, you know, as far as the area, that would make sense. They have cut it down to 8, and they claim they have cut it down to 3 from the list of 8, but will not say which 3 have come from the 8. I don't know.
I don't get the logic.
Listen, it's not a bad marketing ploy because here we are talking about it. So
we're down to 3. Trust us.
Yes. So the list of 8 was the Armada,
bad,
the Brigade,
not better,
Commanders.
The first thing I think of, the Commandos.
Okay, Defenders.
You're gonna have a whole bunch. You have 80,000 fans showing up with no underwear on to watch the Commandos.
You got to get your head out of the gutter today. The Defenders.
Not any better.
Presidents.
I mean, it's kind of, I would say it's the best of the bunch, but I'd stick with football team before I went with Presidents.
Okay. The Red Hogs.
The Red Hogs? Well, see, they had the Hogs, and I don't hate Red Hogs.
Okay. The Red Wolves.
I don't get Red Wolves.
Okay. The Washington Football Team. If you were picking from those 8, what would you go with? Those are the 8. It's gonna the Washington Football Team is gonna be called one of those 8 names.
I disagree. How about something like the political corruption?
So
Can we go with that?
So the
Washington corruption.
You can't, because they got rid of the bullets for almost the same reason. They're trying to clean it. Like, they don't want like the city to have.
But bullets brought on death. Corruption, I'm sure it brings on death, but it's just like that's what Washington is known for: political corruption.
Correct.
So let's just go with it.
I don't think you can. This was my go-to because I sat down and I was trying to think of. I took like 5 minutes to try to come up with something. What about the Express?
Washington Express. See, the only thing, there was a USFL team, the LA Express, and I don't know.
So you don't think they want to double down?
I mean, it was 40 years ago now. Maybe.
I think they're going to go with the Red Wolves. And there's a couple of things online that people made themselves, and what they're demonstrating is ways where they would be able to keep some of the old logo branding with the Red Wolves name.
Okay.
So one of the things they have an R, and the front of the R is a wolf's face, but the back of the R is the original feather from the Redskins logo.
Okay, I dig that.
Yes. So I personally think it's going to be the Red Wolves. That's my guess.
I like the Generals.
Okay.
The Washington Generals.
You can't do it.
Because they are one of the most famous sports teams in American history.
I just don't know. I just don't know if you can do it. Someone said, "How about the Redskins?"
If you don't know, the Washington Generals are the team that always loses.
Always lost to the.
They didn't always lose. They used to let them play for real, and sometimes they won, but they played the Harlem. But if you're like a Cowboy fan like me, you want to play against the Washington Generals because you want them to lose every time.
That's true.
I always thought the Washington Monuments was a great one.
Yeah. The only Monuments is just, I don't know. I don't think Armada's that bad. The problem is it's hard to think of something.
Armada?
I don't think it's as bad as you think it is. The Washington Armada. Because here's the thing, like the Magic or the Heat, like there's something about names
where
Magic,
you don't have because it's in Orlando and it's Disney.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is there's something about not having the S on the end. Like calling yourself like the blank, like the Heat, the Magic. Like the Armada's not bad. I wouldn't pick it. I would still go Red Wolves. And I would still go Washinton Football Team probably over the Armada. But that would be my third choice. I like the Armada better than the Presidents, the Defenders, the Commanders, and the Brigade. That's the best.
I don't like any of those. I don't really like Armada either. I like the Red Bulls, but I like I like it when they suck. That's what I like.
Okay.
I don't care what their name is. Just go 4-12 like you're supposed to.
This was another one.
And they're good, actually. They are probably the team to beat the NFC East again.
Yeah, probably.
They've got a defense, and they've
and
they've got Fitzmagic. For the first time, like in his life, he is on a team that is this could be. He may have officially sold his soul because he spent his whole career going around to these bad teams.
For the first time in his life, he's also in a division where like the division isn't good.
He can win.
So his team's good, and the division sucks.
Yeah.
So it's, there's a real
He's
shot
paid his
him.
dues. It's hard not to root for that guy.
No. TikTok. There was a report on Business Insider that if you have 1 million followers on TikTok, right now you can get $6 to $8 grand per sponsored post. So one video on TikTok, if you have 1 million followers, you can get $6 grand right now.
Well, they're saying that's the average rate. Like you have to find your own advertiser, right?
You would have to find your own advertisers. You have to be willing to put the product in the video. Like the $6 to $8 grand is much more involved, right? Like you yourself, you're finding the sponsor, you're putting the sponsor, you're coming up with the creative for the video. But I mean, for one video, $6 to $8 grand, I mean, that's incredible.
Oh yeah.
That's
especially
a real job.
If you are a niche of like, if you're not just talking about things all over the map, if you're talking about, if you're in finance or you're in, auto repair or whatever that you've come up with, it's doable.
Yes,
it is the new wave,
and it's shifted too now. Like it's not just people dancing, like that's still a big part of it, but there are like how-to videos, there's advice videos, there's motivational stuff. Like it is spread across the board now, and these here's the other part, and I said this to you earlier. It is so much easier to get 1 million followers on TikTok than it is to get 1 million on Facebook or Instagram.
Explain that to me.
So when you first open up TikTok, which you've used TikTok?
I haven't, because Jerry used to send me stuff, and I was like, dude, I can't see it.
You don't see it.
Well, you need an app. Okay. So the only time I'm ever on TikTok is to see the stuff Jerry said.
Here's why it's so much easier to build a following on TikTok. They make following really simple. Like it is right there to the right of the video. You push it, you're done. But the real ingenious of TikTok is when you open the app, it just starts playing a video. Like you are in the feed when you open up the app. So it is immediate engagement. So if I open up TikTok right now, literally the first thing is a video and it just starts going. There's no like platform, there's no like home base, nothing. It just starts playing videos from the get-go. So if you and I released a video on TikTok, I'm not saying it goes viral, but X amount of people are going to see it because they open up their phone and it's like, boom, there it is. It's right in front of somebody. So that is like the ingenious part of TikTok. It almost cuts out the platform itself, and it's just like, here's the content.
And then obviously you can search and all that other stuff.
You can search, you can follow people, all those things. So like on Instagram, where it's like you really only kind of see the content if you go looking for it. I mean, TikTok shoves it in front of your face. It's like, hey, do you like this? And if you do, like,
and you're like, yes,
yes, I do like it. So there is now the other part of it too. If you have 1 million followers, they have their own creator fund where you can actually make $1,000 to $6,000 a month doing nothing but doing what you're already doing. So you're just posting the video, you become a creator, you're in the creator fund, and then TikTok slaps whatever they want on the bottom of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Happening fast.
Okay.
So remember when it was going to get taken down? Remember it was going to get shut down?
Oh, yeah. Because it was the ills of the world.
Guess what?
It didn't?
It did not. It's creating millions.
All right, I want to revert back to an old topic.
Yeah. Should I put it up on
No. So you're walking through a high school.
Yeah.
And you run into a guy. You're like, hey, do you wrestle?
Okay.
Would you, if you walk through a high school, would you ever ask any girl, do you wrestle?
Well, no, I wouldn't.
Why? There's female wrestling and it's growing. But as a society, we just kind of know that guys wrestle and girls don't, even though it's changing.
Because this is the difference. Because the difference is when that girl goes home at night, her mental, like her as a person, is not asking the question, why did no one ask me if I was a wrestler today? But if someone walks up to her and says, like, do you take live, like, have you ever taken nude photos? Like, that's a thing. Like, that's like, well, why would you ask me that? Like, that's a personal thing. Whether or not you wrestle isn't a personal thing. So on Mike Richards' podcast, if he asked a girl, like, so were you a wrestler in high school? Like, that's so different than asking them if they took nude photos. It's not a great analogy.
But my point is that my aspect is in society, we assume different things for men and for women, and we just can't.
Yes. And
we just can't look at everyone and say we have to ask everyone the exact same question.
Correct. But this question isn't made up through like the social construct of good. This question is being made up because of the social construct of bad, which was that for years and years and years, men wrote movies, directed movies, and all stuff. And if you were a guy, you know what was like really fun to see was like nude girls on screen. So this question is coming. It's being derived from something in culture that is not necessarily deemed good. Like, it's not good that was how we made movies for 60 years. It's just different. I can't explain it.
It's different.
It's just different.
I don't know.
Here we go. Ed Sheeran. Are you an Ed Sheeran or Ed Sheeran?
I never heard of Sheeran until you just said it. I thought it was Sheeran.
Okay, Ed Sheeran. I don't know. I go back and forth all the time.
Okay, I
get yelled at because I go back and forth.
Wasn't Ed Sheeran the guy? Did you see the Beatles movie?
Yes.
Yesterday. It was called Yesterday, wasn't it? Well, he was in that, right?
Well, he wasn't the main character, but he was in it. Yeah.
He had that cameo where they were writing songs. Okay, yeah.
He also has a cameo in Game of Thrones.
Was he a nude dragon?
He was not a nude dragon.
Oh, okay.
No, he was like a redheaded soldier. Why would he not be redheaded?
I'm shocked.
Why would he not be redheaded? Okay, he has a new album coming out October 29th.
Okay.
This is a big deal. I'm trying to think of people that it would be a bigger deal today if they announced an album. Taylor Swift.
Ozzy Osbourne.
No. Kanye West.
Jimi Hendrix.
No.
If
Lady
Jimi Hendrix
Gaga.
announced an album coming out, it would be a big deal because he's been dead for a long time.
Correct. They would know it's fake.
Or they would, I don't know, with technology.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway.
Who'd you say as I was being... Sorry,
Taylor Swift.
Okay.
Kanye West, who's supposed to drop one and he still has not done it yet. I can't think of many like bigger. Beyonce, Justin Bieber. I mean, so at this point, he's probably top 10 as far as like releasing an album. Like people that
I probably wouldn't disagree with that. Putting a list together is I'm trying to think of who, like, is Eminem outdated now?
Kind of. I mean, he has his audience, but like mainstream. Because see, you're right. Like there are older people that if they came back and said we're making a comeback album, or I'm like
just because of
right. But if you're just talking about like mainstream, like they're
on the mountaintop.
Yeah, like he is up there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he announced this album this morning, and like my feed was immediately flooded with like Ed Sheeran news.
What's his best song?
Perfect. He has 3 wedding songs that in the last 5 years, if you've gone to a wedding, you were gonna.
That's a niche.
It is.
Bryan Adams did that for a little bit.
It is a niche.
He had they'll play it at the wedding.
He has it. So anyway, he's gonna release an album on October 29th.
Where is he from? He's British, right?
Yeah. So he's from across the pond. Have you ever heard like the origin story of this?
No.
So this is the 22nd story.
Okay, before you get going, how old is he roughly?
I can find out for sure. I don't want to be wrong. So this was apparently, and these details are going to be iffy. At some point, he was playing at a pub. Somebody asked him to come over for a record deal. Jamie Foxx saw him perform, started up a conversation with him. And Ed Sheeran ended up sleeping on Jamie Foxx's couch until he got on his feet again.
Jamie Foxx saw him in the pub.
I don't know. You're like too busy with your TikToks.
No.
Because again, this is not a perfect.
You said story. He's in the pub. He offered a record deal, and then Jamie Foxx.
He is 30 years old.
Okay, that's about what I would get.
Okay,
Okay, so start again.
Now remember,
he's
because you're going to treat this as a factual story, and what I am telling you is like the bare minimum because I don't know the exact details. At some point, somebody asked him to do a record deal, and he came over. And Jamie Foxx ended up at the same place Ed Sheeran was performing.
Okay.
And Jamie Foxx started up a conversation with him, and Ed Sheeran said, like, yeah, I don't really have a place to stay right now. And Jamie Foxx offered him his couch. So it is a fact that Ed Sheeran slept on Jamie Foxx's couch until he got on his feet when he was first here. That is an actual.
But it was they met just by coincidence by being at the same recording studio or something.
Coincidence, but how like
they didn't know each other from England. Yes. They weren't long lost friends.
But like, am I shocked that Jamie Foxx, who knows all these producers and all these people in the industry, bumped into somebody who was asked to come over by somebody in the industry?
I guess it's more shocking that Jamie Foxx didn't have a freaking guest room. Like, give the dude a bed.
Couch?
There's a couch. That's all I got. Yeah, well, you know the story when Jeremy Lin burst onto the scene in the NBA. He was sleeping on a buddy's couch.
Yes.
He's the hottest. He's the most talked about player in the NBA. He's on like a 15-day contract with the Knicks.
Yes.
And he's sleeping on a college buddy's couch because he thought he was only going to be in New York for 2 weeks and he didn't want to get a place.
Correct. So this is why.
And he probably couldn't afford to get a place for 2 weeks.
Probably not. Why Jamie Foxx let Ed Sheeran sleep on his couch. So it's a true story. You can actually find this on thethings.com. There's also another story in Entertainment that you can read about Jamie Foxx letting Ed Sheeran sleep on his couch.
Did you know this one too? We might talk about this on the air. There's a dude from the Cubs, not the Cubs, the White Sox, young player who's really good, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head. He was in the minor leagues, sleeping on an air mattress.
Okay.
The coach said to him, "Dude, you can't sleep on an air mattress all year. Get a bed." And the guy looked back at him and said, "I'm not going to be here that long." And 9 days later, he got moved up. So that is a great story.
That's pretty good.
Don't worry, Coach. I'm not staying that long.
No, that's pretty good. It's tough to decide those things. Real quick, before we get to Ryan Reynolds, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, they were teammates on the Golden State Warriors. They came out and said that they feel the reason that the Warriors broke up is because of the front office not letting them air it out between themselves. I don't know if there's a fascinating subplot there. I find it fascinating because there is this idea of like nowadays you have to like overhandle everything. And here are two players basically saying like, if you would have left us alone, we could have sorted it out.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But there's also Durant's had a lot of issues.
Yes.
For the greatest player in the world, Durant has had a lot of issues.
Yes.
And it's easy for them to say that now.
Yes.
Because now that they're apart, they can get along better. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are in relationships, as you've been in a dozen of them, who can tell you that sometimes people get along better when they're apart and they only see each other once in a while.
Sure.
So the fact that Kevin Durant and Draymond Green said this, I mean, I respect what they say and maybe they're right, but it doesn't mean they're definitely right.
No, I would agree with that. The one part that they said was the Warriors suspended Draymond Green and they didn't suspend Kevin Durant.
Because Durant was better.
And they have said that basically put a wedge between them that was unsolvable. And that if Draymond Green would not have been suspended, that wedge is now removed and maybe they talk and they sort and figure it out. But basically the suspension by the Warriors just made it so they were never going to see eye to eye.
No, I get it. But if you ask me, and again, I'm not saying they're wrong. I didn't know much of the story until you told me beforehand. There's lots of aspects of the world where management makes decisions and the employees say they did it wrong.
Sure.
And it doesn't mean that the management was wrong and the employees were right.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean, like, there's lots of times management screws up, but just because you've got an employee that says they should have done it this way, it doesn't mean they should have.
All right. We'll see where that goes. Last one for today, Ryan Reynolds. He has a movie out called Free Guy. I'm hopefully going to see it tonight.
I can't believe you've waited this long.
Yeah, things have been hectic. I'm excited. Should I be excited?
You hear the word Ryan and Reynolds back to back, and you're immediately excited.
Correct. I've heard good things. I'm excited.
The reviews have been like it's
really good.
83%
on Rotten Tomatoes, which is decent. Metacritic 64, but they're always a little more harsher. They're the movie people.
People who followed this show know your deep-seated love affair.
Yes.
With Ryan Reynolds.
Correct.
I think he's great. I think he's funny.
Do you think he's overrated?
I mean, I think he's perfect for what he ends up doing. I'm trying to think of him now in a really dramatic role. Can you give me one in a really dramatic role?
A dramatic role,
but like
that's
Deadpool,
not a rom-com. Not really.
Deadpool. He
was in Mississippi Grind, which
Never
is
saw it. That's the one that we said is his highest rated.
He's pretty good in that. He was in the movie called Buried that I told you about. That is like bizarrely good. It's about a guy who gets stuck in a casket, and so the whole movie is him like in this casket and him trying to figure out how to get out. So that's kind of more of like a dramatic.
Which, please tell me, it's full of flashbacks.
Not really. It's there's parts of the police trying to find him because there's a cell phone. So there's parts of like the police, but he doesn't know where the casket's buried. So even though he can talk to the police, like what are you gonna describe to them? Like so there are like parts with the police out, but I would argue like 2/3 of it is him inside the casket.
Well, I don't know. He's perfect in Deadpool. He's perfect in Hitman's Bodyguard.
Yeah.
I think his comic delivery is effortless.
He does a voice. Yeah. He does a voice. Just so real quick, he does a voice in The Croods. 6 Underground was the Netflix one with Michael Bay that just came out.
I tried to watch it and I didn't.
Okay, you didn't enjoy it.
Is it good?
I enjoyed it because I enjoy Michael Bay movies for what they are. Like I don't sit down and watch Transformers or what was the other one? The apocalyptic one. I'm blanking on it now. But when I watch a Michael Bay movie, like I know, like I'm getting the popcorn and I'm going to watch stuff explode. I'm not in it for the dialogue. I'm not in. Now, if you're someone that doesn't like to watch like high action stuff, then I get it. Like Michael Bay's not for you.
If you were interviewing Ryan Reynolds or Ryan Gosling for your podcast, would you ask them if they do nudity?
I would not.
Okay.
I wouldn't, and that's the problem. That's right. He did the Pokemon. Did you see the?
I did see the Pokemon. Yes.
It wasn't that bad. He was in part of the last Hobbs and Shaw, the Fast and Furious thing. Here, like to be honest with you, ever since he had the one flame with the superhero movie, the Green Lantern.
The Green Lantern.
And ever since after that, he has recovered nicely.
Did you see? I didn't see the Green Lantern. You obviously did.
I saw the Green Lantern. It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. I'm trying to find like a dramatic role, kind of, because I get what you're saying. Like he's never done like the Oscar dramatic, like I'm taking this seriously and I'm really going for it. And he's never done that. So how, like we talked about A-listers the other day and kind of, if you've never done that, can you be an A-lister?
I think he's an A-lister.
I think he's an A-lister.
Deadpool makes him an A-lister. I think no
Deadpool does.
So here's my next question.
Okay.
If you got to go on a lunch date with either Ryan Gosling or Ryan Reynolds, who are you picking and why?
I'm picking Reynolds only because I think he just has a better, like a more first time like personality.
Affable.
Yes.
You think Gosling could be super intense through the entire
not even intense. I think Gosling could just be quieter. I could see it being more awkward with Gosling than it is with Reynolds. That's the best way that I could put it.
I would probably pick the same thing.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't pick between those two. And you would pick a dark romantic cave as your setting.
I don't know about that. He did definitely maybe. Yeah, I'm blown away that I can't find like a dramatic. He did the Amityville horror movie.
Never saw it.
Which again, it's a horror movie, but at least that's kind of more of like serious. There's not a lot of laughing. Like he's a father. Like I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. I didn't really realize it until you just said that. He's never done like the drama Oscar. Like I'm going for my little dude on the shelf.
Not yet.
No,
not
maybe
yet.
You say not yet. He may never.
He's not that old. What is he? 40?
I mean, he's only 40, but my point being is like, you look at Deadpool, Pokemon, now he's doing this Free Guy. Like, there's a lot, like, why would he ever need to go for it?
Well, I think like Eddie Murphy did.
He's in the X-Men stuff.
You can only be, like, there's times where you can only be funny so long, and then you want to try to do a role that's not funny. And
maybe. Now, he has up here, his post-production, he did one Red Notice, which is with The Rock. That's coming out on Netflix. Okay. It's him, The Rock, and I want to say Gal.
I know who you mean.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
Now I'm forgetting her last name. Godot.
Godot. It's French.
Godot. He did a movie called. He's doing Clue, like the board game, like a remake of the board game. That doesn't
surprise me.
He's doing Deadpool 3. He also is doing a TV series called Fava Mucka.
That is a serious role right there.
Yes, yes.
I hope it's not a podcast because he'll get himself in trouble.
So let me put it to you this way, like based off of his IMDb and what he has coming up, like the only thing on here he's doing, and this isn't on the IMDb, he's doing a movie called The Adam Project, which is about him having to go back and meet like his 12-year-old self. That's all the detail. Like there isn't a trailer for it yet. There isn't anything like that. But when I read the description for it, I was like, that could be a serious, but I'm sure it's not. I'm sure.
I think The Rock is going to have a serious role someday that he is.
Why? Because the difference now is like the money has shifted
to prove that he can.
I guess, but that's the only reason, because the money has shifted so much. You don't have to prove. Like I don't want to say you don't have to prove you're a good actor, because I do think The Rock's a good actor. I think they're good actors. But like you don't have to prove it anymore to make money. Like you get in a franchise or two and like you're good.
Yeah, I know, but you still want to just kind of show off a little bit that like. I mean, because once you have all the money that The Rock has, he doesn't need anymore.
I think The Rock's harder though, because we've talked before about people who are kind of a caricature of themselves. It is hard to see The Rock not as a caricature. It is hard. Like, how is he like? This is a bad example, but how would he ever play Denzel Washington's part in Fences? Like, how is he ever going to be like the father in a serious drama, or how is he ever going to be like you know what's funny? You know what he should do?
Somebody in something.
Well, you know what he should do? He should play The Rock. The story of The Rock. His story is fascinating.
Yeah. I can't believe there's not a role. And even if it's in a supporting role, like what Robin Williams won in Good Will Hunting, or
it's going to have to be very niche-y, because just his size and who he is as a person.
His size makes
and the way
tough.
And his charisma. Like he can't.
Well, you can water down the charisma.
How are you
to be an actor? Can
when you're 6'3", like 280, can you water down the charisma?
He can't water down his size, but he could water down depending on who he's playing.
He can't water down that smile.
Well, then he won't smile.
It's going to be tough. That's my point.
Charm and charisma, is that the product?
You can see The Rock playing like a sidekick down on his luck.
All I'm saying is I think there's going to be a point where The Rock joins a roster where he wants to win instead of just being the highest paid player on the team.
But he's winning. He's winning.
But he's not. I mean,
Karl Malone went and joined the Lakers because he didn't have a ring, not because he had 4 rings and was like, oh, you know what I should do? I should prove that I can be a sidekick.
And The Rock doesn't have an Oscar. He doesn't even have a nomination.
No, but he has money.
Correct.
And so I guess that's the point, is I think money has surpassed the trophy. I don't think the trophy before, if you got the trophy, now you got the offers and the money followed. Now, like, you can make more money than there's Oscar winners that have pennies compared to The Rock. Like, it's not.
And I don't disagree with that. Yeah. But once you're to the point of you have all the money you need and you could make all the money you need. Is he 50?
I think there's going to be people. I don't know if he's 50. I honestly don't know.
He's at least 45.
I mean, he was at the U. He played football for Miami in the late 90s.
I thought it was early 90s. Be that as it may. There comes a point when he's got hundreds of millions of dollars where he's going to be offered 2 movies. And one is an action adventure where he saves the world and he makes, however much, $25 million plus. Or there's another one that is gritty and grindy and he's, maybe he's a leg breaker and he works for, who knows, but there's a chance that, like, in reading the script, this is a smaller, independent, niche film, but this could win an award. And he's like, I already have $1 bajillion. Do I need this many more? Or should I try to stretch my legs and see what I can do here? I think there comes a point in everybody's career where they're just like, I'm going to try to do something critically acclaimed.
I think he does. I could see him hosting something before he ever tries to win an Oscar. I think what's incredible about The Rock and what Ryan Reynolds learned the hard way is like you find your brand and you play it. And those two, like Green Lantern almost ruined Ryan Reynolds. Like it almost ended his.
Well, yeah, and I get that, and I know.
And so if you're The Rock and you're Ryan, like you just do your thing. You just do it, and you're not going off the tracks. Like they've been off the tracks. Like they've seen what it's like off of the tracks.
But he's so good. His life. He could stop making movies now, and his life would never suffer.
That's a good long bet for us. I bet you that he never really goes for it.
I disagree.
I know you do.
I think everybody does sooner or later.
That's a good bet for us. I think The Rock will continue to do good projects, but I don't think he'll ever do a trophy chase. I don't. I think he knows his lane, and I think he knows what he's good at. I think he's likable. I think I could see him being a politician before he plays a role where he's unlikable. Seriously,
I can't because as a politician, you're immediately unlikable. But to half the population, you are, depending on where you're at. But here's the thing, I think I agree with everything you said. He knows his lane. He knows what he's good at. But that doesn't mean that in his mind he's like, I'm the best at this, but I can do this too.
Yeah.
And so that's where comedians do dramatic roles.
Right.
Because you're just like, well, you're a comedian. You just go be funny. But then they do a dramatic role. And then, when people saw Mork, nobody thought Robin Williams could do what he did in Good Will Hunting.
It's so different. I get your point is well taken. But the dynamics of a Robin Williams versus the dynamics of
the physical,
it's not even close.
I agree with that.
Not even close. And that's my thing with The Rock is like his success. Part of it is that he's great, but part of it is like he is playing into what he's great at. And so like if you are him, breaking away from that is like that's a choice. It's a hard one. I don't think it's a simple thing for him to just go chase trophies to get an Oscar. It's hard. Like I don't see him doing it.
Maybe. And here's when Will Smith showed up as a rapper who did the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, nobody thought he could do The Pursuit of Happiness or anything like that.
But see, I disagree because in that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the most iconic scenes are when Will Smith's really acting. Like the most iconic scenes are like when he's upset about not having a father, or when he breaks down and cries on Uncle. I always forget his name. Uncle, oh my God, I'm forgetting his name.
He just passed away.
Yep. Now I can't think of it. But like when he's crying on his shoulder. There's a scene too where he's with Carlton and they're like really like expressing like how they let each other. Those were the best scenes in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Not the community. Like no one like people who really, because that's my wheelhouse. Like Fresh Prince was Fresh Prince was great, not because Will Smith was like hilarious. Like he's funny, but he wasn't hilarious. Fresh Prince, like he was amazing. Like you felt like he was a real actor stuck.
You know
in
why?
This weird thing.
Because he is a real actor.
Yeah. You ever seen Leonardo DiCaprio in Growing Pains? Remember the show Growing Pains?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's like a 2-3 season arc where
us cool kids when we were growing up, we called it Growing Pains.
Yeah,
but
sure.
That's
there's like a 2-3 season arc where Leonardo DiCaprio was in it, and you can tell like in the like they're real like he's not that funny, but you can see like there's scenes where like he's emotionally distraught and he's crying and like you're like watching and you're like, oh, he's like he has it. People who are watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air were like, Will Smith has it. Like whatever it is, like he has it.
George Clooney had a recurring role on Roseanne or
really
something?
I did not know
Before ER, George Clooney had a spot on one of I want to say Roseanne, but that's just off the top of my head.
Okay. That's funny. I did not know that.
Yes, George Clooney. You can Google that.
That's really good. All right. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. We hope you enjoyed Pop Culture Thursday. And be sure to go check out all of our Little League World Series coverage at NorthcentralPa.com.
It starts today. It's going to be different, but you
can see up above us. These are what the buttons look like. If you go to our website, just find one of those buttons, click on it. There may not be anything if you go right now because I think the first game was at 1.
I was going to say first pitch was probably 1.
I think the first pitch was at 1. There might be a couple of preview stuff, things like that. So as the day goes on and as the week progresses, check out those buttons. Go check out the Little League World Series coverage at NorthcentralPA.com with Brett Crossley. Anything I'm forgetting?
Nothing. We'll match again tomorrow.
All right. Sounds like a plan. Oh, Facts of Life, George Clooney.
Facts of Life. Okay, not Roseanne.
Uncle Phil, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
God, I couldn't think. And Aunt Viv.
Here, we'll give some credit. Yep, George Clooney was on Facts of Life. Lisa knew that as well. Joe also knew the Uncle Phil. And then Wendy also mentioned there's already a TV show about The Rock's life, and he plays himself. So there you go.
Huh. Wasn't it Aunt Viv? Wasn't it Uncle
Aunt
Phil?
Liv or Aunt Viv?
Aunt Viv.
Aunt Viv.
I
okay.
thought it was Vivian,
It might be.
but I can't. But anyway.
I can't remember.
What was Carlton's sister's name?
I don't know. I can't think of it off the top of my head. You know, I have not watched those. Those
Or
used
was
to
there
be
an older
on-
sister and a little sister?
It's funny. No, there was an older sister and a little sister.
That's what I thought.
Yes,
I thought there were
there's
2
three.
girls.
But here's the crazy part. I used to watch it all the time. And you talk about, like, it's funny, like, cutting the cord, like, getting rid of your cable and everything else. There are things that I used to watch consistently that I have not watched in, like, 8 years because I just got rid of cable. And I just started going with all the streaming stuff. And that is one of them. I have probably not seen an actual episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in probably almost a decade.
You want to know, this is before your time, a TV show that I've probably seen every episode is Little House on the Prairie.
Really?
It was possibly the greatest show ever. And
I find that so hard to believe.
it is not the most masculine thing to say, but that show was, Charles Ingalls was.
Is that the one where they all say goodnight to each other?
No, that's the Waltons.
Okay. I remember
Good night, Mary
seeing
Ellen.
different.
Good night, Jim
So I
Bob.
remember seeing different episodes of the Waltons then. I don't know if I've ever actually watched Little House on the Prairie.
I've seen them all.
Okay.
I can tell. What do you want to know?
Nothing right now. We'll do an episode.
If we are ever at trivia night and they ask Little House on the Prairie questions, just let me answer.
Okay. I'll let you do that.
I'm
Hopefully Mackey's listening. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show.
Mackie doesn't even listen when he's on the show, let alone today.
Can you blame him?
Not really.
All right. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will be back with you tomorrow.
We'll see you.